All right, welcome everyone to some Demise's Newbie Corner. And wow, this has been a long time for this series to come back, but I got a stroke of inspiration today, and I was like, let's do a pretty interesting thing. Hopefully, today we're going to be doing a new way to talk about, to think about crawl. So what I'm trying to do with uh, this video here is to give new players, or really any player, the ability to kind of understand crawl in a more, I guess, I was gonna say a more mathematically or statistically rigorous method, but I feel like it's a little bit too formal for me. And honestly, there are people with far higher mathematical statistical education in the crawl community, and I'm sure I'll just get called out for it. So I'm just gonna say it's a new way to think about crawl, and the reason why I want to do this is because I think it's a very interesting way to think about crawl, and it might help you improve better in your own like understanding of how to improve, how to get through things, how to judge for yourself the objective quality of certain things. Basically, yeah, like I'm just giving you a framework here that you can work with. It's just a tool that you can use. It's not perfect, but it's the way that I think of it, and it's the way I've always thought about it. Now I've just, I guess, gone and put it into words that I can explain to you guys. As always, if you guys enjoy the video, leave a like, but that will be at the end. I'll show more at the end. Um, okay, so the framework of our model is like this. For me, Dungeon Crawl Stone Soup, ignoring the fact that it's a game and all that crap, and ignoring a lot of the variables, I guess, that make Dungeon Crawl Stone Soup the game it is, um, effectively, when you boil it down, Dungeon Crawl Stone Soup is a game where um, it's a game of decision making. It is effectively a strategical chain of decisions that you make that eventually lead to you winning the game. For the purposes of this video and for the framework, I will be ignoring things like strategic play, like training and god choice and whatnot, um, because those are decisions that you make kind of almost out of the game, like not even like part of the danger. I'm talking about specific strategic situations where, say, you're faced with opponents on the screen, right? Say you're faced with some choice. You're required to take immediate action, and the question is, how will you do that? And these decisions I will put on a 1 to 100 scale in terms of difficulty of how difficult the actual line of play is. Um, so what I mean by that is, say for example, one is you find a single goblin, you're XL 27, and the goblin has nothing, and you're on D10 for some reason, right? That is very clearly a situation where there is literally no danger. You could sit there for about 50 years and it wouldn't even kill you. Your regen would be higher than its ability to hit you, right? But say for example, a 100 scale is four ancient liches, three orbs of fire, uh, and four berserk orc guardians right next to you, right? That's at like a level 100 level difficulty rating. Um, Maybe you got teleport trapped or something. But effectively, each individual decision will fall on a bell curve. So I've just kind of put one here. It's not like incredibly accurate, but you can kind of imagine each decision, each relevant decision path in any game can fall roughly along a normally distributed bell curve. So it means like if this is zero, the average is 50, for example. Um, though this is not technically correct because normally it would skew this way, but we'll talk about that later. Just imagine that it follows a nice symmetrical distribution of a bell curve. So most decision making falls within like maybe like say this is like 20 to 60, right? So like most of them will fall in that range of difficulty, meaning they're not incredibly difficult. They're kind of okay. You'll get some like really trivial things as time goes on. This left side will become much more pronounced, and in the right side you'll get less of that. But yeah, you'll have very few situations where you're actually sitting at that 100 mark or 80 whatever mark, and those will be the more difficult plays. The player will then put in effort when they see a situation from 1 to 100, and the only thing they have to pay for this effort is mental energy, I guess. So what I'm trying to say here is that every time you encounter a scenario, there is a danger rating, and then you put in enough effort to get past the danger rating. Um, and based on how well you adapt to that is basically your worth as a player. So and my like, I guess, qualifier for this decision model style is going to be as such: if your effort, so the mental effort that you put in, is greater numerically than the decision difficulty, your player will survive. And if your effort is less than the decision difficulty, the player dies. So I've just like this is just a random image, but like it's just like your pain tolerance, I guess, how well you're good at diagnosing it, I guess. So for example, if you were seeing a situation as, like, say for example, a 3 or a 30 or something, and then you put in 10 for whatever reason, like you put in 10 effort or 100 effort, going back to this bell curve, you will survive. If you put in 50, you'll survive. If you put in 30, well, maybe you won't survive. Maybe it's not. Maybe you just die to bad RNG. If you put in like 0, you'll probably die. 0 being like literally trolling in terms of killing your character. There is obviously like the model has limits at the extremes. It's like, it's not like you can just do nothing at 0, right? I guess. But yeah. So the model is basically that. So you get a separating equilibrium, I guess, is what's going on. You get a separating situation where if your effort is ever below your decision difficulty, you will end up dying on your character. Notwithstanding RNG, notwithstanding all that shit. Ignorable, right? And one thing that I want to note here is that as a situation draws on, your difficulty rating can actually increase, probably up to some cap. Usually because other monsters come to a fight, you drop lower on HP as your fatigue wears in, your character gets beat up a little bit, you know. And that's just there to kind of say like, okay, well, if you're standing there in the middle of a big fight and you continue to put in low effort, your difficulty rating will continue to increase, even though your effort is kind of staying the same until you eventually die. So, you know, basically what that means is diagnosing a situation early makes it easier to respond to something. So kind of spoiled it for the rest of it, but let's talk about an example here. So this is from the Slow Demise Greater Player run, which I haven't really finished, but this was in episode number 2. Looking at this, I immediately went downstairs and I was beset upon by a bunch of gnolls. Now, looking at this situation, you could actually take a look and say, okay, well, this situation here is actually not horribly difficult. It's actually like maybe like a 70 or a 60, right? The reason why it's not that high yet, despite there being 4 gnolls on D2, is because I have the upstairs, which means that I have initiative. I can move upstairs, get 2 people up with me, and then I only have to fight 2 gnolls, and it reduces the difficulty. If I were to continue to fight, so I put in low effort and I just kind of tap, let's see what's going on, the other gnolls will come up with me, the other gnolls will converge on me, and if I go upstairs, I'll have to fight 4 gnolls, I'll have to tank 4 gnolls when I'm going upstairs as well, and I lose that initiative as well. So the danger would be like 100 or 99 or something like that. So as you can see, as the situation unfolds and I'm putting in no effort, I'm going to end up getting more and more progressively like screwed over until only randomness from RNG, like a really insane blink, will save me, or everyone missing me for a single turn, right? And if I continue to stubbornly tab, I'll end up dying, almost certainly. So, because it gets to the point where the effort that I can put in is not high enough to actually meet the danger level anymore. But that's just an example that I'm using to kind of illustrate kind of the way that you can think about the mechanics that I've just kind of put into play here on the screen, I guess. Now, there are a couple of implications for this, and I think this is where like the model kind of is being used to explain things. So for me, I'm using this model to explain to you that better players will be better at diagnosing the 1 to 100 scale accurately. What that means is not that they are putting in more effort all the time. They're actually just better at knowing exactly how dangerous a situation is. They know, okay, this is the situation. This is exactly how much effort I need to put in to get the situation to kind of resolve itself peacefully. And on top of that, they might actually be able to diagnose it earlier. So you'll be able to diagnose a situation that can potentially be a high danger situation earlier. And they will also be able to be more efficient in putting in their effort because they will know what best responses are like on the bat. So for example, a new player, given a situation like this, might have to think a lot longer than someone like me if they were to make the same plays as me, like, which is immediately go upstairs, blink, right? It may take them longer to process that because they don't have the same level of like knowledge and intimate understanding of the mechanics of the game and all that stuff. And like, obviously it might be more difficult for them to understand that there is a mechanic, which means they'll have to research it, which will take more time, more mental effort, etc., etc. So they may not even be able to physically put in the effort unless they're willing to go completely outside of the game. So they'll be restricted in terms of how much effort they can put in, and of course they might not diagnose the situation as incredibly dangerous on D2. And here is where I kind of bring that playstyle argument back in. Now, I have made some significant discussions on playstyle. I've always said to people that for new players, playstyle is a crutch that you use to misdiagnose your errors. What it basically says for a new player is, my playstyle is being garbage. Not playing fast. It's not my playstyle to play less carefully. You're just playing bad. You're not good, like, enough to have a differentiating playstyle. Because playstyle only really occurs when you already have a firm grasp of the game. Sorry, I knocked the table. Have a firm grasp of the game mechanics and all the danger and such. So if we were talking about playstyle in terms of this model, it's actually then how closely you adhere to your diagnosis. So what I mean by that is, your effort might be greater than your decision difficulty, but the question is by how much. So for example, for a new player, imagine that for every 60 situation, you put in 80, right? Clearly, you will have over-prepared for the situation in terms of difficulty. And that will probably lead you to be getting a much more optimal solution. Not necessarily the optimal solution, but a more optimal solution. Meaning you might save on a curing potion. Maybe you might save on blink, fear, teleport, whatever. Right? The difference between, getting into a bad fight, having to blink out, and seeing a bad fight and walking away. That's the equivalent of, seeing a situation, over preparing for it. You save a consumable at the cost of your mental strength, right? And this is where playstyle starts to play in. Safer players take a wide upper margin. So what they'll do is they'll see a situation, they'll always put like plus 20, for example. If they see an 80 situation, they'll put 100 effort in. And they'll always get that big, nice margin. Whereas faster players like myself will trust their instinct more. They'll stick close to their estimate. They'll put only the amount of effort that they need to survive. Sometimes it gets them killed if they misdiagnose by a few points, for example, as I often do. Sometimes you just get, you lose a couple more consumables, but on average, it takes a lot less mental effort. And of course, the higher your effort, so right there on the bottom thing, the less consumables you use on average if you use more effort, I guess, constantly. And by that logic, you can then say that streak play is the equivalent of playing at 90 to 100 the entire time, treating each individual step as a situation of 100 to 90. That is effectively what optimal streak play is. And you can see that in the greater player run, the slow greater player run, if you do watch it, where I continuously monitor my situation regardless of if there's anything even on the screen. Because I'm consistently looking at that point where, as the situation draws longer, the difficulty rating will increase. I'm looking out for the situation to even occur. I'm looking out before the situation even arises. So I'm getting even more and more potential consumable conservation and protecting my own character, right? So that's the first implication. That's how you can get better. So to get better, you get better by diagnosing better, which means you have to learn, you have to apply your deaths that you get from misdiagnosing to your decision making in the future. So if you die to an ogre on D4, you're like, okay, well, an ogre on D4 means that it's, say you put in 60 effort, it's clearly more than 60 effort. Next time put in 70, next time put in 80, 90, 100, whatever. Until it comes to the point where dealing with the ogre on D4 is going to be dealt with efficiently for you, right? That's how you become better. Understanding that scale of danger and understanding how to respond accordingly. Again, new players will be less efficient, so they might have to put more effort in relative to a more advanced player. That's fine. Just put in as much as you can. If it's not enough, take it even slower. Every situation can be dealt with mostly. Of course, this model ignores the idea of potentially, Ijib with an acid wand, right? It ignores stuff that's completely unavoidable, like Ijib around a corner, acid wand, instant kill you, one hit. Can't do anything about it, fair enough, right? That's like 101. Nothing you can do can save you. Like, even if you put 100 effort in, wouldn't save you. Anyway, yeah. So the second implication for this model is that it allows you to gauge strength, and I mean strength in terms of like power, how good something is. It lets you do it a bit more objectively. So what it means is, how does you doing some strategic play, so this is me bringing that strategic play back in, even though I said that this model only applies to tactical play, it can be used to apply to strategic decisions instead. So like training, what god you pick, what race you pick, what class you pick, all that stuff changes the way that your decision making curve looks, how often you find those bad situations. So I'm using the example here of a Minotaur. Minotaur, we all know, is top tier. Why? Well, the standard answer is, well, they have high hit points, they have horns, they have really strong aptitudes in everything that you want to do. They're just a good all-round race. Well, the answer in terms of this model is the Minotaur makes the bell curve of decisions skew left. So things tend to cluster around the more trivial situations, and dangerous situations tend to be much more rare. So you'll often find, instead of having a nice, normally distributed, cluster of situations, you'll end up with this left side curve, this left skewed curve here, where a lot of things are on the low end, and you get a lot less high end stuff. And even like the middle end stuff is kind of rare as well, because Minotaur, again, steamrolls through a lot of the situations that other characters would struggle with. And for a Felid, it would be the opposite. You would imagine flipping that curve to the right. It'd be right skewed. So a lot more situations will be like on the 60 to 70 to 80 scale, and the 100 scales come relatively thick and fast, because Felids will get killed by things like centaurs and any mage and orc priests that Minotaurs would just not have to deal with. Those situations are not lethal to a Minotaur. They are lethal to a Felid. So that's how I gauge strength objectively. And you can use this to then consider, okay, if I find a new mechanic in the game that I'm not sure about, how does it change the bell curve? How does it change the way that my character considers decisions? How does it do that? So if I find, for example, the large tang of order, does it make my decisions skew left? Does it make the decisions skew more towards the average? So does it make like things somehow shift in? So the left, that right tail, that big right tail of high-end decisions, does that pull in closer to this side? So it's normally distributed to the shifted left, not skewed left. Like, how does it affect my character? Do the more like kind of extreme situations come in, or do they lengthen out? Does it make things worse? Most things in this game will help you move things left, but usually it's a question of how much left does it cause you to move. So an example of something that might be like really a bit of it, like, say for example we talk about that whole plus 11 short sword of piercing, right? The classic weapon that gets a lot of people riled up. Oh my god, it's plus 11. Oh my god, it's a short sword. It's an artifact. Oh my god, it's so good. Yes, that skews your entire decision-making field left, which makes it objectively really good to use early on. However, as time goes on, the curve will creep right again, because your weapon is becoming weaker and weaker relatively, and now decisions are becoming more and more difficult as you do less damage relative to how much damage you should be doing. So when it starts shifting to the right, it's time to take it away and use something that will make you kind of stay on that left side, making everything kind of more trivial, making things more easy for your own life. And again, treating the reason why we do these things is because effort takes mental cost. It's freaking hard to play this game on full-time 100% brain power. It's very difficult. It's mentally taxing. It hurts. So the goal is generally just do the thing at as little cost as possible, unless you want to play really optimally, like you're streaking for a tournament. Anyway, that's it for today. I wanted to make this video pretty short, so I did. It's just under 20 minutes. Now it's going to be a little bit over. That's fine. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I try to make it short and sweet so that, it's a bit more digestible. I really, if you like the video, if you like the model, if you like the theory, if you want to see more, let me know. Leave a comment, do those things. Apply to my social media. I don't know. Join my Discord. Whatever the hell you want, really. Like, just, I don't know. Do the things that make you or me happy. One of the two. Either way. You could even call me an ice cream face, and I'd be like, if that makes you happy, fair enough. Anyway, that's it for today. Thanks for watching. See you all tomorrow.